Welcome to Michigan Justice Chronicles with Dan Geherin.
Hello and welcome to Michigan Justice Chronicles with board-certified criminal trial attorney Dan Geherin. Today's episode is going to be about navigating the Washtenaw County criminal justice system. Dan, welcome back.
Hey, Kevin, thanks for having me.
So I noticed on your website that your firm practices all over southeastern Michigan, but you're based in Ann Arbor. Is Washtenaw County your busiest county?
Oh, there's no question about that. And there's probably two very good reasons for that. One, what I say on the website and what I tell clients, it's not just a tagline, but I was born here, raised here, practice here. I was born in Ypsilanti, which is in Washtenaw County. I live in Ann Arbor, and I practiced here primarily for the past 26 plus years. And so I take a special interest in and attention to those of us that are in the same boat, that live in my community, that find themselves in the justice system in this community. So without question, being someone that's a veteran of and homegrown here, that's going to be the busiest practice area for me personally. The second reason for it, why it's so busy for us, is Washtenaw County has got a literal ton of criminal justice cases. We are, by sort of geographic location, sort of small. We're on the, in the shadow of Detroit or Wayne County. We're not a major city that people think of, and it's not this huge spread out area, but there are a lot of cases in Washtenaw County in the criminal justice system. Why? Because we have a lot of population and it's growing. Ann Arbor is a very populated city. We've got growing cities in Saline and Ypsilanti and Dexter and Chelsea. So more people are coming here because of our schools and so forth. More population means more criminal justice cases. We also have two major universities, University of Michigan, Eastern Michigan. You're talking 75,000 students cycling through every year. And what do students do? Get themselves into trouble or find themselves in the criminal justice system. And so with a lot of population, a lot of accidents, pedestrian issues, criminal offenses, Title IX cases, boy, there's no shortage of justice cases in this county. And that's why we're as busy as we are day in and day out.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you. I remember Ypsilanti. I'm like, which college is there? I knew I was pretty sure it was a MAC school, but yeah, Eastern Michigan. Okay.
That's exactly
that's a lot. That's a lot of college students.
There's no doubt. And I think previously we did a podcast on college offenses and Title IX offenses, and that filled up a whole podcast because that's a whole world of itself. And so, again, that sort of explains why this county has as many criminal justice cases and why we're as busy as we are in this county day in and day out.
How many police agencies do you deal with in Washtenaw?
Yeah, it always shocks people because you would think, oh, there's a sheriff, there's a local police department. We have about 11 to 12 active police departments in our small county. Wow. And we're not talking about one or two officers. We're talking about major departments going from the state police, the sheriff's department of Washtenaw County, the city of Ann Arbor, which is one of the biggest municipal city police departments in Michigan, and then all those other cities I mentioned. Then we have weird little township prosecutors like Pittsfield Township, Northfield Township, townships that you've probably never heard of that have their own police departments. On top of that, we have multiple prosecutors' offices. We have, for every township, city, there's a local prosecutor. Then you have the county. Then you have the attorney general's office. And so determining who's going to investigate a crime, depending on where it occurs, what jurisdictions there, it can be a complete minefield. And you talked about navigating. It is often a navigation to figure out which police department is going to be investigating a crime. Then, to take your last point, we have two major universities. And guess what? They both have police departments. University of Michigan DPS, Eastern Michigan Police Department. They're often investigating crimes on their own campuses. So at least 11 active police agencies, all with at least 10 officers or more, gives you an idea of our justice system in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's a lot more than I would have thought, for sure. How about courts? How many courts are there in Washtenaw, and which ones have the highest volume of cases?
Yeah, that's a little bit of a trick question because we have two divisions. So we have the major leagues up here. That's called the 22nd Circuit Court. Every county has a circuit court that handles the big stuff, right? The felonies, the major civil cases, family law, and things like that. Our 22nd Circuit Court is cut up into several different judges and departments. You have PPOs, you have juvenile cases, you have criminal cases, you have civil and family and so forth. So pretty monumental big league court. Then we have three districts. We have the 14A, the 14B, and the 15th district courts. And you would think, okay, that's three courts. virtually every one of those is cut into sections. For example, the 14A district court has the 14A 1, 2, 3, and 4 divisions based on geographics, east side of the county, north, west, and south. And each of those has typically a judge and a courthouse and so forth. So in all, you have two major court systems, various divisions, and many judges that fill those roles. And as you can imagine, one judge, even 10 minutes away from another judge, you're going to have polar opposite type policies and procedures. So navigating, again, can be a complicator in this county.
So I was going to ask you that next. How many judges are there then?
So right now in the justice system, we have 12 to 13 judges. And the reason it sort of fluctuates is sometimes judges change from civil back to criminal and so forth. But we have 4 circuit court judges that handle criminal felony offenses. We have referees that handle juvenile offenses that are essentially judges. We have magistrates who conduct arraignments. They are lawyers that wear a black robe and act like judges. And then we have 7 district court judges in those various divisions we mentioned. Add it all up, you basically have 12 to 13 any day of the week doing criminal justice cases. And again, they range in personalities and backgrounds and procedures and likes and dislikes, and not everything is treated like. You may have a very progressive judge and 10 minutes later a very conservative judge, and we do. And so learning those judges' tendencies, what cases are likely going to be treated in different ways, is part of the experience that we bring to a case, and then which we can help a client who finds themselves in the justice system in Washtenaw County.
Yeah, it's interesting because you just hearing you talk about this, it's like, wow, this guy knows the system. Someone comes in from Detroit or from somewhere else to represent someone. I'm sure it happens often. How big of an impact does knowing the judges, knowing the courts, knowing the area make on building a case?
It's huge. And, just to know that I'm not being self-serving, I will only take a case outside of Washtenaw County if I've got good familiarity with the courts and the judges, and if I feel comfortable that I can be of assistance, because there's a lot of sort of good old boy country club type networks in some of these other counties. And if you don't fit in, you don't take a case there. Washtenaw County is generally pretty welcoming, but outsiders tend to find themselves in a spider web because of all the weirdness of our system that I've outlined, not knowing judges' likes and dislikes. We get a lot of calls from attorneys that I've known my whole career. Hey, Dan, can you give me a scouting report on ABC? And we're happy to do that. But generally speaking, unless a client just knows they want a trial, they don't need any sort of, inside baseball, for lack of a better word, they would be better served most often, especially with a serious offense, with an insider. And I'm not the only one, but certainly we fit that bill as someone who was born here, raised here, and primarily practice here.
Same goes for the prosecuting attorneys. Do you find that knowing and working with them over the years and understanding their tendencies makes a huge difference in building a case?
Understand their tendencies is well said, right? If you have a prosecutor that is lazy or misses things, your chances of trial or litigation success are inherently going to be better. If you have a prosecutor that won't sleep until he or she, puts every ounce of preparation, that maybe that's not the easiest trial. And then there's a matter of trust, right? I can pick up the phone and call a prosecutor that I've known for 10 years, and they're going to trust what I tell them. There's not going to be any doubts or confusion because you build a reputation that you treasure, and that's with prosecutors and judges as much as with clients and the public. And sometimes when an outsider comes in, they don't know the players, they might push the wrong button. So well said on tendencies and trust, and those are important factors for getting a good result, whether it's a civil litigation case and knowing the other side, or it's a criminal case and a prosecutor like you mentioned.
What are some of the biggest differences between Washtenaw and the neighboring counties?
We have what is called a unified court, which makes no sense to anybody. It essentially means that the district courts can handle some of the circuit courts' duties. That's a big change for courts and counties outside of Washtenaw. But then there's some criminal justice sort of practices that really blow people's hair back because, number one, we have a lot of specialized courts. Because of Ann Arbor's progressive nature and some of the funding Washtenaw County has been able to accrue, we've got veterans court, mental health court, 3 different sobriety courts, a lot of specialized courts that, frankly, a lot of counties don't have. And knowing who qualifies and what would be the benefit of each can be a major benefit to those of us on the inside. And then there are some weird sort of unfair policies. The way domestic violence cases are treated here much more harshly than neighboring counties, same too with drunk driving. I'll give you an example on another type of case. When a felony is charged here in Washtenaw County, there's typically no notice to the defendant. No one writes a letter. No one makes a phone call. There's just a warrant for a person's arrest. And so people are arrested at work every day on old warrants they had no idea about. Most counties notify people. And so a lot of times attorneys will call and say, what happened, Dan? I had a client arrested. I'll say, you should have known the policy. Mm-hmm. That's why you should have tracked the case and been ahead of it so you could have walked your client in. So these are just little pieces. I could go on for hours about the differences, but major justice system differences with our courts, with our specialty courts, with some of the leanings of our jurors, a bit of a more progressive county on some offenses and a little bit more unforgiving on others. And again, knowing those tendencies and knowing what your jury pool is like, Kevin, that can be the difference between a successful litigation verdict, a not guilty verdict in a criminal case, or the exact opposite, a $0 verdict in a civil case, or your client's going away for a long time.
Yeah, when it comes to jury pools, is it, because obviously you have a general, there's a general type of student that goes, I think to schools, but you're constantly, shuffling around. Kids graduate, maybe go to neighboring cities, and a new crop of kids come in. Does it make it difficult to sort of be able to predict a jury pool or make an educated guess on a jury pool?
No doubt. And as you can imagine, people's views are changing all the time. I mean, you see demographics, you see political elections where young people have sort of flipped in what they're like now. And then you have different areas of the county, even in a small county, as I've mentioned previously. You have a jury pool on the west side of our county in Chelsea and Dexter. They're going to be conservative, a little rural, a little blue collar, not necessarily trusting of police as much as, sometimes people are on other sides of the county. Flip it. You try a case in Ann Arbor and they're going to be forgiving unless it's violence against women, and obviously so. So little subtle differences, even intra-county on jury pools can be a big difference. And knowing those pools, knowing what you're up against, boy, I couldn't imagine walking into a county that I don't have familiarity with and just guessing what the pool would be like. That's what we bring to a case here. That's why we primarily practice here. And, every year of experience I have, every year I've lived here and practiced here, that is one more year that I can bring of experience to this firm and to the clients that choose to retain us with their criminal justice matter.
Yeah. Is it the times you do work out of county, does it remind you of how much value there is in working or in knowing where you work so well?
There's no doubt about that. It's always good to come home, right? I mean, if you have a bad experience either with a judge who doesn't know you or trust you, or prosecutor or another attorney that just has to sort of get to know you, it's nice to come home where you're known, you have that experience, you have that reputation, you have those ethics and things that people are well aware of. It can make a big difference. So as I said before, we will take a case where we think we can help, where we have sort of comfort and experience. If not, we'll refer people to the right spot. But here in Washtenaw County, frankly, I don't think you get more insider than us.
When outsiders do come in, what do you see as the biggest challenge or mistakes that people make when they don't know the county, when it comes to attorneys?
It's usually misjudging a judge, right? Thinking that, this judge is going to be fine with this argument, or this judge will be fine if I don't file this, or I don't submit my motions in time, or whatever the case may be, and finding themselves in hot water with the judge. That happens a lot because, as said before, if a judge doesn't know you, trust you, know your ethics, and if you cross them, they can make yours and your client's life miserable. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of misgauging of policies, like I mentioned, especially with that arrest policy. And then those jury pools, boy, knowing the jury pools, county to county, intra-county, what type of case you have, you misjudge that, you're probably on the wrong side of a verdict.
Do you feel that the fact that you've spent so much time in Washtenaw, the fact that you grew up in Ypsilanti, the fact that you've been in Ann Arbor for so long, does it become do you get a community feel, like you have more of a desire to help and do your part because of that?
There's no doubt, right? Whether it's pride or whether it's just the way I was raised by two teachers, or, you want to make sure you're giving your best to every client. I mean, we wouldn't have the reviews that we have with something like 500 five-star reviews and ranked as what's called AV preeminent, which is the highest ethics and performance related that you can get from Martindale-Hubbell. Wouldn't have that if we didn't dedicate ourselves to every client. But there's, of course, when it's someone in your community, someone that you may have known or your kids know, or you know from just being out and about, that brings a special sort of attention to a case. We want to make sure we take care of every client, especially those that we're likely to see again. And those clients that you take care of and you do great work for, guess what? they're going to refer you to other people too. So that has its own benefit on top of just the feeling that we get from providing a good result on a criminal justice case for a Washtenaw County resident or anyone for that matter.
You can't underestimate that connection. I feel like, wherever you're connected to and whatever you do, there does become this sense of pride, this sense of wanting to help out your community.
No doubt about that. I think that's well said.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in to Michigan Justice Chronicles with board certified criminal trial attorney Dan Geherin. To connect with Dan, head to glgmichigan.com and be sure to like and subscribe to our channel and leave us a review. Dan, it's always great to see you. Thanks so much for being here.
Hey, thanks, Kevin. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.